Welcome, Debbie McRae. We are approaching Thanksgiving in 2025. I can't believe, how fast this has gone. Grateful you're here. And what topic do you have for us today?
Well, today I thought we would focus on the betraying partner. And as I got into studying and putting this webinar together, I was working on 10 ways that a betraying partner can support their betrayed partner's emotional regulation, their healing, rebuilding trust, and creating connection. And there was so much information that I pulled together that today we're only going to talk about 5 of them. And next time we meet, I will talk about the remaining 5. So,
Excellent.
as I mentioned, I'm going to talk directly to the betraying partner today. And the reason I'm doing this webinar is because I keep seeing betrayed partners who are coming in with struggles that they are having with their betraying partner around things like transparency, honesty, around them being willing to support them in their healing. So I thought this would be a great way to kind of put some of my ideas together, especially for those that are betraying. And so they've got some ideas of how they can help support their betrayed partners. So I want the betraying partner to understand several important things. The first thing is your betrayed partner is not crazy. They are traumatized. This means that their nervous system is on high alert and they're trying to make sure that they are never blindsided again. They never want to have another discovery. They don't want to have another disclosure. So what may look to you like overreacting or obsessing, not letting go, is actually their body and their brain saying, I love you, but I don't ever want something this devastating to ever happen again. So today we're going to look at all this through the prodependence lens that Dr. Rob Weiss put together. And just as a reminder, with prodependence, we believe that the betrayed partner is not codependent or sick for loving you and wanting the relationship to work. So their efforts to get information, to set boundaries, to monitor whether or not you're safe or not are really normal and loving responses to your harmful behavior. So we do not ask the betrayed partner to detach from you as a primary strategy for them to survive. Instead, we ask you, the betraying partner, to take on the responsibility and to be responsible for creating safer, more honest, and more emotional availability, and to be there to support them in their healing. So like I mentioned, today we're going to walk through 5 specific things that you can do to support your partner's emotional regulation, their own healing as they're doing their healing work, in rebuilding the trust with them, and in repairing the connection. Now, I want to have a side note here, and that is, you're not going to do all of this perfectly, and that's okay. What I know betrayed partners want to see is that you're willing to do it, and you're trying to be consistent in practicing what you're doing. They don't expect perfection. What they want to see is the effort. So I want to kind of check in, and we're going to talk about adopting. First of all, step number 1 is adopting a prodependence mindset, that your partner is safety seeking and they're not crazy. So if you secretly believe any of the following, that your betrayed partner is too much, or they're asking too much, they're overly emotional, they're obsessive, they're crazy, or they're controlling, then everything you do is going to feel like you're not really in it 100%. In fact, everything you see your betrayed partner do in trying to get safety in the relationship with you, you're going to see as an attack or as an inconvenience. So I want you to reframe how you view your betrayed partner. Remember your partner's pain, the questions they ask, their anger, their hypervigilance is all normal responses to being betrayed by you. Their nervous system is saying, I still want connection with you, but I need to know that it's safe. So we don't want detachment to occur. We want there to be efforts on both sides in staying connected. And so for you, if you can take on the attitude of you really care deeply for your partner, regardless of how they're reacting, that you're there to focus on their healing as well as your own recovery, then what's going to happen is we're going to work on repairing the rupture to the attachment that has occurred. So I want you to take on the attitude that you're going to create safety for your partner. It is your job. The second principle I want you to think about is having radical honesty. So you've got to really create a safe space for them by being completely 100% truthful. And oftentimes this includes a formal therapeutic disclosure. So one of the biggest reasons that a betrayed partner stays stuck in their trauma is oftentimes they don't have all the truth, or they're getting trickle truths. So a little might come out at discovery, and then a little more a few weeks later, and then something else months down the road. So every time there is a new revelation, this re-injures your partner, and it tells their nervous system, you've got to be on high alert. You're still not safe. Don't relax. The other shoe is going to drop. So your partner's intense reaction as they're getting trickle-down disclosures, or maybe they're interrogating you to get information, is going to be an intense reaction. They're not being dramatic. They're doing their best because they want to make sure you're safe. They want this relationship to work. They want there to be repair and healing. So it's really important that you work with your therapist within a group setting to really work on showing up honestly and authentically, because safety can only happen when there is complete truth. So your partner needs to know what exactly happened. They need to figure out what's real and what's not real. They don't want to spend a lot of time waiting. Now, I recognize the fact that when we are doing a formal therapeutic disclosure, that it might take several months for all the preparation to take place. And that's fine. And that's part of the healing that not only the betrayed partner needs to do, but the recovery work you need to do, because we want to make sure that it goes well. I don't want you to think that if you do a therapeutic disclosure that telling them more is going to hurt them to the point where they will never recover. And I don't want you to enter into this process of a formal therapeutic disclosure believing if you tell them everything, your partner will leave. Now, they may, but my experience has been most often the betrayed partners want to put all the puzzle pieces together. They want all the cards, so to speak, turned up so they can see everything that they're dealing with. The reality is they're already hurting. They're already wondering about what was happening. Having a partial truth feels very unkind to them. It's very confusing. And like I said, I see betrayed partners' nervous system and their trauma brain is on high alert until they get the truth. So one of the most powerful things you can do for them is to do that formal therapeutic disclosure. So I did an entire webinar on this, but I'm going to just talk briefly about what I see happen when a therapeutic disclosure takes place and how it helps the betrayed partner. We know that with a formal therapeutic disclosure, it is a very planned and structured process. So not only do we have that narrative that you, the betraying partner, is going to put together with all of the details, and you'll be directed and helped with this by your therapist, but then we're also going to move into the betrayed partner putting together an impact letter as to how your disclosure, your behaviors, your addictions, your infidelities have impacted them. And then we move into that third part, which is the accountability or the restitution letter, which helps the betrayed partner to know that you get it, that you understand their pain. So a formal therapeutic disclosure needs to be guided by a highly trained therapist. I've had multiple times where I've had clients come in who have had disclosures. Either they've decided to do it themselves and they've stayed up into the wee hours of the night talking about everything, and the betrayed partner comes in so dysregulated that we have to spend months getting them regulated, and we have to oftentimes go back and redo that therapeutic disclosure in a healthier way. I've also seen it done with therapists that aren't qualified, and that doesn't go well either. So we have to spend time repairing the damage that was done. So I just really want to emphasize how important it is that you get a good therapist who understands how to do it. You are going to read this letter that you put together, this narrative of all your acting out in a very safe, controlled environment. Your therapist will be there. Your betrayed partner's therapist will be there. And it's going to be something that is carefully laid out so that the betrayed partner understands everything. So when we do it this way, we are trying our very best to do it in an intentional manner, that is aimed at really minimizing any additional traumas that could come up with the new information. So I want you to ask yourself, are you willing to do a formal therapeutic disclosure to say to your betrayed partner that you deserve to know what reality actually is? It shows the betrayed partner the attitude of, I will face what I've done. And it's also telling them that I will give you the full truth in one place so you don't have to keep being on high alert and brace yourself for new surprises. So I often see that for betrayed partners, that once they get that formal therapeutic disclosure, I visually see and I witness their nervous system settling down. Yes, they have to deal with the information and they're processing that and working through that by doing their impact letter. But it's amazing what I see as far as the healing that takes place in a betrayed partner. So you've got to be willing as a betraying partner to push through your denial, push through your shame that might prevent you from being willing to do that formal therapeutic disclosure. So here are some of the things that you can say to your betrayed partner. It might be that you can validate prior to the formal therapeutic disclosure that you understand that the partial truths are keeping them stuck and that their nervous system is on high alert and that you might feel unsafe. Also, let them know that they deserve the full picture of what happened. Reassure them that you're working with your therapist to prepare that formal therapeutic disclosure so that you can get the whole truth in a structured, supported way. And let them know that they will have your support and that they have a right to ask questions, which they will work with their own therapist on doing. So after this webinar, I want you to ask yourself, are there still things that I haven't disclosed to my partner that they would want to know? Have I had an attitude of unwillingness to do a formal therapeutic disclosure? And do I need to change my attitude? Am I willing to face the truth and do the hard work and push through the shame and the denial? And how can I do this in the healthiest way? And then, if you haven't already, I want you to talk to your therapist and begin working on that formal therapeutic disclosure process. And make sure that your partner, your betrayed partner, also has their own therapist that can help support them. So the third thing that I want to talk about is taking full responsibility. So once you're committed to the truth and you've shared and you're willing to do formal therapeutic disclosure, you're in recovery, you recognize the fact that you need to help your betrayed partner, the next step is that you cannot blame the betrayed partner for anything. They cannot heal as long as you are flipping the tables and turning the tables when they come to you in distress and then make it about the betrayed partner. So through that codependence lens, your partner's imperfection and their pain did not cause the betrayal. When they have pain, when they may react in an unhealthy way, we have to look at as their attempts at trying to make sure connection is safe. We don't blame them. So one of the things you might do is to kind of format your own accountability statement, because there's going to be a lot of times that your shame's going to come up and you're going to want to defend yourself. Your shame might also want you to minimize it. So when they come to you in distress, you might want to make it not that big of a deal and express that to them. So what I want you to start doing is when your partner comes to you in distress about something you've done, The first thing you need to do is to name the behavior that you participated in. So let's go through an example. It might be something like, I lied to you about getting on my phone and getting on Facebook. The second step would be to acknowledge the impact that it's having on your betrayed partner. And I know that lying to you about getting onto Facebook is really hurtful for you because I snuck around, and I imagine it makes you feel unsafe. And then take responsibility. And what I did is on me. You did not make me do this. I chose to do this. And then the fourth step is to state your commitment. So moving forward, I'm going to get rid of all my Facebook apps and all my social media apps. And if we have anything on social media, it's going to be with both of our names on it. And then you've got to follow through on it. So when you take accountability, when you acknowledge the impact, when you state your commitment, what that's going to tell your betrayed partner is that you are becoming safer and their nervous system is going to start settling down. So make sure that you do not have an ongoing attitude of, my partner's the enemy. My betrayed partner has this fault, or they're doing this and they shouldn't be. Instead, I want you to change the lens through which you see your betrayed partner and recognize that what they're doing because they want to make sure that you're safe and secure. And their nervous system is telling them that you're not. Okay, principle number 4, one of my favorite ones, and that is using an empathy model we called AVR, where we acknowledge, we validate, and we reassure. So empathy is not just feeling sorry on the inside, but it's actually showing up in a way that will help your partner emotionally regulate. So you can do this by practicing empathy, which means you're going to step into the shoes of your betrayed partner, and you're going to look at life through their lenses as often as possible. Now, I've mentioned multiple times already in this webinar that shame has got to be worked on. So this should be part of your ongoing recovery work, because when your partner comes to you and they're in distress, or they're upset, or they're hurt, or they're extremely sad, the tendency is for your shame to come up. And we don't want that to happen. Instead, we want to have you step into a simple empathy tool where the A stands for acknowledge what happened and acknowledge their pain, to validate the feelings that they're experiencing in that moment, and then to reassure them that you are doing the work you need to do to help support them. So, for example, you might have your partner come in and say, I was out shopping at the grocery store and I saw someone that looked like you and I have felt sick all day. I can't even regulate. And so as we use the AVR, what you're going to do is you're going to acknowledge to your betrayed partner, I can understand that seeing that person that looked like one of my affair partners would be really painful. And it took you right back into your betrayal. And then the next step is to validate. And of course, that makes you feel sad and possibly even angry. And I understand why you would react like that. And then reassure the betrayed partner. So I want you to understand that I am going to continue working on recovery, that I am committed to working on my own recovery so that something like this never happens to you again. So notice with empathy, there's no defending, there's no saying to your betrayed partner you're overreacting, and there's no minimizing. It really is about you being present with your betrayed partner and validating their pain and also trying to identify their emotions. So I challenge you, if you're a betraying partner, to maybe sit down with this AVR formula and journal out maybe some different scenarios where you could use AVR. So for example, when your partner's angry, or maybe when they're shut down and numb, maybe when they are anxious or crying, and then practice saying it out loud. Now, this is a skill set, and it might sound really robotic at first, but continue doing it. often tell the betrayed partners that it takes a couple of years for the betraying partners to really move into doing that empathy formula organically. But the important thing is that you try. Okay, the last principle we're going to talk about today is being predictably transparent. So let's talk about transparency. So, betrayed partners really don't like to be controlling, but they don't want to be blindsided again. And their trauma brain again is constantly asking, do I have enough information so that I am safe? So we want to honor the fact that they want this information. So transparency is key. It is one of the most important components to helping the betrayed partner rebuild trust in you. So what transparency would look like is you sharing your schedule and then sticking to your schedule. So if you say you're going to go to work and you're going to be home at 6 o'clock, you're going to walk in at 6 o'clock or a minute or two before. Letting your partner know before plans change. So don't come home after the fact and let them know that maybe plans changed at work and you ended up going to lunch with people from the office that may have included other people that were triggering for your betrayed partner. It means using accountability tools or software as part of your recovery plan. It means agreeing on reasonable access to your phone, to your devices, to your locations, so that we are building safety. And it's being radically honest. So that means that you can't just tell partial information. You have to tell all the information. And I know this can be really difficult, especially if this is a habit that you've used, even prior to being in the relationship with a partner that you betrayed. So if you're having a difficult time being radically honest, then I encourage you to work with your therapist on this. It's really important that in that transparency, that you're honest with yourself. And so I would encourage you to even practice that as you go in and work with your therapist, being radically honest with them, because we can't truly heal until we are completely transparent. So those are my 5 things for this week. In 2 weeks, when we meet, or 3 weeks, whatever it ends up being, we will discuss 5 more ways that the betraying partner can support their betrayed partner. And in conclusion, I also want to say that I work with a lot of betrayed partners. And what I do know is they really want the relationship to work. The majority of them do. And the hardest thing for them is when they're in relationship with a betraying partner who isn't 100% willing to do the work, to be transparent, to be radically honest, to give them the full truth. It is so painful. And so I want you to consider, how important the relationship is, and to see about taking on an attitude of doing whatever it takes to repair the relationship and to work on healing the rupture to your attachment. So that's what I have for today.
Thanks. That's great. And I look forward to part 2. And you were talking about the transparency and radical honesty. And, you talked about a therapist, I'm a big 12-step person. And so it
Yes.
like if you're seeing your therapist once a week for 50 minutes, be really transparent and completely honest there. But practice with your sponsor, practice with your peer support, practice with those safe people so that you're more in the habit of doing that. And you're right, it starts with transparency with myself. I'm not lying to myself. Denial is, oh, well, I'm telling her the truth that she can handle. All of those, like anytime there's, a lie of omission is still a lie. And so leaving out part of it, you know, asking ourselves why are we leaving that piece out of it? What are we hoping will happen if we leave that part out? And we don't want to get in trouble. We don't want to whatever. But if we're able to think through, how is this ultimately going to help my relationship if I do this, because it's just going to keep that gap going. So great stuff. There was something else. Oh, the validate. Could you, when you were talking about, I'm curious about this. Because you said, I understand that whatever, and I was like, I wonder how many addicts betraying partners, initially can really understand. And does a partner? No, this is the question. And does a partner? Are they able to take in, I understand, if they don't really believe that he's being truthful about that? So you get what I mean?
I do what you
Or
mean.
is it going to,
So
okay, thanks.
this is where that concept of stepping into their shoes and
Hmm.
trying to see it from their perspective is
Okay.
so important. And I'm going to tell you right now that if you can learn to step into their shoes and say, I understand that this creates so much fear in you, right? Because they've probably told you how much fear they're in. Now you're validating to them that you're seeing them, that you are acknowledging how difficult it is for them. That is just so important. And so often, because of our shame, right, we all put up the defense, screen and that shield, and we shield up and we get defensive, and we're not willing to look at, the other person's experience. Again, I know in the early weeks of disclosure and discovery, this probably isn't going to be something that's going to happen. But I want to circle back around to formal therapeutic disclosure. I know I'm talking about that a lot, but if you could understand all that comes from doing a formal therapeutic disclosure, it's like you said, you have to practice radical honesty by doing the disclosure. Not only that, you've got to be transparent. And then when we go to step 2 and you hear the impact letter and you get a copy of that impact letter, now that's giving you a tool that will help you step into your partner's experience and the pain that they have. And so it's really important, I believe, to do that step. I see so many big shifts and changes happen, especially with a betrayed partner, when we do that formal therapeutic disclosure and we do it in the proper way.
And that is the key, when we do it in the proper way.
Yeah.
Because, I just heard yesterday about someone who'd been through two, not optimal by a long stretch, formal therapeutic disclosure. So it is challenging, but doing the work, in a also proper time frame. I hear people that it's a year and a half and still haven't had formal therapeutic disclosure. I'm like, oh, so yeah, okay. Let's get to questions. The first one is, betrayed 4.5 years since discovery. Had to set a boundary to not engage with my partner as I found out he stopped going to meetings 8 months ago, which was my bottom line boundary to work on things. Throughout, I've have requested that he attend men's group to get to support with others who are working on marriage repair. He refused. The connection ask was a bare minimum of an hour a week, and he could not do this consistently for more than 2 weeks in a row at best. Now, after this boundary, he has all of a sudden found a men's group, but not for repair, but to support him in separation. I work to understand this motivation, and is it still healthy behavior to validate him as a victim in all of this? It's very sad and disappointing. He says, get, get, and I am, um, I am his priority and he loves me, but that doesn't make any sense. So I'm not quite sure, but basically it sounds like he's giving lip service to, you're my priority, but he's refusing to do anything, including the bare minimum ask for a boundary. So thoughts?
Yeah, I have some thoughts. I'm going to give you an exercise, the person who asked this question, because I want you to really look at the reality of your situation. Because based on the facts that you've shared with me, 4.5 years since discovery, and he's now in a group that's supporting him in separation, not in repairing the marriage. There's not a lot in there that you talked about him as far as his recovery work, but I'm also hearing that he's got a bit of an attitude about how he's doing it. And for you, what's happening is you're finding that in order for me to create safety for myself, right, I'm kind of separating myself more and more and more. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to get out a piece of paper, and you're going to do 3 columns. And in the first column, you're going to share, or you're going to write down all of the data. This is what you're seeing happen. And I want you to do that. And the category around the data is what you see your partner doing for recovery or not doing for recovery. Okay? That's just the data, the facts. In the second column, I want you to list what you think about that. What's the story you have going around that? So, for example, one of the datas would be my partner is attending a group that supports separation, not marital repair or recovery from, addiction. Okay? The story I have about that is I'm fearful that him going to this type of a meeting means that he's leaving the relationship. He's not willing to stay in the relationship. He's not willing to do the kinds of meetings that I need him to do to feel safe, right? Then in the third column, you're going to put the emotion that comes up for you as a result of the data, the story or perception you're in, and then the feeling. And as you do this exercise, I want you to notice the feelings that are coming up because that's an indicator right there of whether you feel safe or not. And it might also be an indicator that you need to take a look at the relationship and ask yourself, do I need to go back and do I need to maybe redo the boundaries I have set? Do I need to put new healthy boundaries in place? And do I need to give my partner some time as a boundary to, do what I need them to do? Because I can explain what safety looks like for me and what I would see them doing to create safety. And then if they don't do it, do I also then seek to maybe move out of the relationship? Do I want to first of all try a formal therapeutic separation that is very, very boundaried, that tells both partners, in that separation document, what they're going to be working on while they're spending time apart? We're spending time apart to focus on our own recovery. Or do I need to move out of the relationship? So your situation is very, very difficult, but I want you to really kind of look at what you're dealing with. Validating him as being a victim and all this, I do not believe in validating people to be a victim. Kind of goes back to drama triangle, which I've talked about before. And anybody who's a victim comes with an attitude of they are powerless and people have done this to them and they're wanting you to fix it and make them feel better. And then again, they're not doing the work they need to be doing. So I want to just acknowledge and validate how difficult this must be for you and how powerless you even feel in a situation like this when you really want him to get it and to do the work so you can repair the relationship.
So I threw a few things in the chat. So Dr. Stevie Hall and Lindsay Stanley actually have a workbook on therapeutic separation. And yes, as Debbie just shared, it's both of you, and there's agreements, and this is what the expectations are. Um, and I'm sad for you that he stopped going to meetings 8 months ago, which was and you found out like he
Mhm.
didn't tell you so all of this, he's still just doing what he wants to do and not even trying to do anything that would be helpful for your healing or repairing the relationship. I also put, should I stay or should I go? Zero judgment,
Mhm.
like not, yeah, but I think I love the three columns. I think that's a really great place to start. And but then there's some more information. The second one is one partner who stayed, one partner who left. Again, zero judgment. But the first one was also Kristen Snowden did one, and she had some questions out of Dr. John Gottman's work, and journaling about those and just journaling, and looking at the data that you collect from that, three columns, that's information, somebody was sharing with me, or I forgot where I heard it now, but I was like, I am going to use that because they were talking about hopiness. And like, I'm not going to fall into hopiness. And I love that because it can be blinding. I hope he, I hope we, but looking at the data of this is what he's doing. He's telling you what he's doing, and especially that he's going to a separation group, you know. Well, one more thing, Dr. Rob does expert consultations with couples, and there are times, he's been doing them for years, and there are times that one person is afraid to tell the other person that, whatever, like, or maybe both of them are like this isn't working, and we can wish each other the best and move on. But like it almost feels like that if he's running off and doing separation stuff, and you're still holding on to the hope that he's actually working to do repairs while still lying to you that he quit that group, so I go to lots of 12-step meetings, not lots. I used to go to lots, and now I go to my 12-step meetings, and to stay on track. And we talk about meeting makers make it. Yeah, that I've heard that 1,000 times, and I heard it again last night, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. The people that do it's basically, if you're doing the work, things change. Like that's, it's a quick little easy slogan, but it's if you're willing to do the work, things change. Nothing changes for an addict, like until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. He's right now, he's going like, oh, I love you, and he's off doing whatever else he's doing. And it's kind of like, and Dr. Rob does this too. Come here, go away, come here, go away. And I feel that with him. It's like, oh, I love you. And then I'm going to a separate, a group for separating. It's so confusing for partners. So I just want to honor how crazy making this is. You're not crazy. This is crazy making, but you please lean into the support. One more resource, and it won't be next Thursday, but there's well, maybe it will be. Susan Anderson runs a Moving On Alone drop-in group. It's for partners who have been left, or have one foot out the door. And the focus is a little different. It's not about repairing the relationship. It's just an option. There's no commitment. You're not throwing in the towel. It's, but that might be useful for you, to consider, on your journey as well. So, but hear us clearly, we're in your court. We want you to, be able to be regulated, take care of you.
Yeah, and I also want to add, so what can you do in the meantime?
Yeah.
Oh, and that would be, I want you to make sure that you've got a therapist that is one that really understands betrayal, that really understands healthy boundaries. And I hope that you also have a support group of some type, that are not dealing with this alone, and make the focus on your own healing rather than outwardly watching how your betraying partner isn't doing anything. You make the choice that you're going to heal you regardless of what your partner does. But it's going to be hard if you don't have the right kind of support. It's hard to do this alone. So I want to make sure that you take care of yourself as well.
Yes, all in on that, and we've got lots of resources to help support you. You can always email tami@seekingintegrity.com, and I'll do my best to help you find, qualified professionals, or share the resources with you. Always let me know if if you're the betrayed partner, or the person that's been struggling with compulsive behaviors, and where you're located, because I need to find people, in your area that are licensed in your area. Okay, the next one. Can you address the waiting period and its negative effects on the partner? Studies have shown the period of not knowing is more traumatic than the actual disclosure. So this is before formal therapeutic disclosure. For the betrayers and therapists that is dragging out disclosure, what do you suggest? I see this so often, and it seems highly damaging. I do too. What are your thoughts?
I do too. I'm going to tell you pretty much, when a betrayed partner comes in and sees me the first time, high on their list is I need a formal therapeutic disclosure. So that's one of the reasons I'm here, is to get that done. So I want to first of all acknowledge the fact that it is damaging if we have to wait too long. So what I like to do is I like to, even in the early sessions, probably not the first because it's an intake, but within the next, second or third session, that we are looking at, okay, how are you doing? Are you regulated? Let's start working on your plan for that formal therapeutic disclosure. So there's several things that you're going to be working on as a betrayed partner during that waiting period. One of them is we've got to get your nervous system to have the ability to regulate. So if you're in crisis, especially, we've got to help you kind of get through this. We've got to give you the tools and the skill set to help regulate your nervous system. So that's one thing. We've got to get you doing good self-care. That's another thing. And you've got to start working on a self-care plan that you're going to execute on the weeks leading up, the week of disclosure, during disclosure, and post disclosure. So there's some work that needs to go into that. The other thing that you're going to work on is you're going to work on questions that you want to ask and submit to your betraying partner's therapist. So there's a lot, and with my clients, I will spend at least 2 sessions working on questions and understanding the why and wording them appropriately. So we've got that to do while the betraying partner is working on their narrative. So here's something that I like to do to help move this along, and that is I get my partner to sign something called a release of information, allowing me to speak with their partner's therapist, so the betraying partner's therapist. I also make a request that they ask their betraying partner to sign a release of information with their therapist as well. Once that happens, then I can reach out to the other therapist and I can be an advocate for my client and say, my partner really needs to get formal therapeutic disclosure done as soon as possible. So ideally, and this might sound like a really long time for you, but I feel like it takes about 2 months. It really does, to get everything in place, to find a time when both therapists can meet, when to get the questions in, to do the narrative. There's a lot that goes on. It does move fast though. But if you feel like your therapist is working with your partner's therapist and we put at least a date on the calendar, it feels so reassuring because you know you've got something to look forward to. And keep in mind that most addicts who are working on a formal therapeutic disclosure don't want to be working on it because it brings up so much shame. There's so much fear. There's so much denial. They know they need to do it. So they've got to kind of break through that. And they're also working on putting together data. And because their brain has been operating near that limbic region in a state of dissociation under the effects of dopamine and all sorts of other chemicals, right? That it takes a bit to get the brain to start to bring data back up. So we want to make sure that it is thorough, but we want to do it as soon as possible. So it is a little bit of a balancing act. I do not believe in going a year before formal therapeutic disclosure. I believe we get it done as soon as possible. It might be 3 months, it might be 4 months, but in the meantime, I'm working with the betrayed partner and helping them move on in other areas of their life, and getting stronger in their recovery so that they do have the ability to regulate and be okay with the disclosure taking a little bit longer than they would like.
And I'm going to be really careful here, but I hear often of people that are waiting, and I hear a bunch of things. I hear lots of stuff, but let's go with the one I was thinking of is my betraying partner says his therapist is saying that he isn't ready yet. And I always say, if you haven't heard it from the therapist or like if you've got release assigned, your professional has not heard it from that therapist, it is suspect. And at some point, and Debbie is the queen of healthy boundaries, having a healthy boundary about, I need to have a date set. I need to have this. And if you're unable to do that, then the consequence may be formal therapeutic separation or whatever, but that can help create a boundary around that, getting that data, you know but I'm with Debbie too, like dragging feet. Oh, I don't want to work on it. I'm afraid she's going to leave me, blah blah. I mean, all of this stuff. It's like the 4 step and 12 step, like the freedom that happens, like to the relief is powerful, but the fear of approaching it it's just challenging, so, and we can't wave a magic wand and make them see, oh, it's going to be so. Nope, I've got to go through this. And if you will remember that all addicts are using maladaptive coping mechanisms to not deal with uncomfortable, unpleasant emotions and feelings and all of this stuff. this is uncomfortable. This is, highly uncomfortable. So there's just a lot of, a lot to go into it. And I'm with Debbie. It's like if, yeah, I think a reasonable time, having a date set, even if it's early in the process, okay, let's set a date. If there's some extenuating circumstance, something really big, that can be discussed, especially with both of your professionals and, so that it isn't, we're just kicking the can down the road. So, having a professional that is advocating for you partners is so important. I hear partners getting lost in this process too often, and so making sure that you've got qualified professionals and that there's someone that's really advocating for you, like, in all of this, the partner's therapist advocating for the partner is, to me, the most important piece of it almost. So okay, next one. My husband is not acting out with sex. I saw an inappropriate comment Facebook. He admitted this was wrong. How far along does my husband need to be in recovery? The 12 steps for more honesty in dealing with root issues, wounds. He struggles with anger and irritability and showing emotion. So, like you, so um, the 12 steps, steps 4 through 9 are the housekeeping steps. When we do a searching and fearless moral inventory, that's step 4, and share it with someone, our sponsor, therapist, priest, minister, whatever, that's at step 5. And then we start working towards making amends, all of that. That's the process. All of those things that you're talking about, I mean, real recovery takes a couple of years, to get. But one, like I see, well, let me back up. In the 12 steps, it talks about the promises. We will be amazed before we are halfway through. There's 12 steps. Do the math, before we are halfway through. So it's kind of alluding to having done steps 4 and 5, we're going to start to feel some relief and shift. And the more we are doing, I mean, I hear lots of people that are going to 1 meeting a week or 2 meetings a week. Like, don't anticipate a lot of change for something that's a 24/7 issue, with a minimal amount of effort. So the more we lean in, the faster that starts to happen. And we're trying to do something that is not natural to us, that the like I picked up a chip this week, meaning I got a coin for my recovery journey, and my sister had texted me how many days it was since my sobriety date, and I broke into tears because for me to not act out for one day, I couldn't fathom it. So to get a chip for doing it a whole bunch of days is a miracle. That is not natural. My point to you is we have to learn how to do things that do not come to us naturally. But Debbie is like, if he's doing those things and acting, grumpy and angry and all that, you know, she is the queen of 4-part talking boundaries. So
Yeah.
there are things that you can do regardless of what he's doing, but take care of you in all of this. And so, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's a second part to that question, which says
Oh,
neither of them
sorry.
is at a point of disclosure. Both of us need better recovery.
Oh,
Is this thought process wrong? Okay, so I want to talk about a couple things that came
mm,
to my mind when you asked this question. What I look at is I look at two things when it comes to recovery with a partner. And I love the fact that I think working the 12 steps just takes recovery to such a deeper level. So I think it's never too early to start 12 step, ever, ever, ever. Okay. I think it'll also assist your betraying partner in getting to a place of radical honesty. The other thing I look at when I'm looking at a betraying partner is what is their willingness and what is their capacity? So, willingness is about their attitude. How willing are they to do the recovery, to do it without you being the one who motivates them, right? It's about motivation. So, are they motivated internally? That's called intrinsic motivation. Or is all of their motivation from outside of them, extrinsic motivation, meaning like the betrayed partner? So when I see that dynamic, it is not going to create long lasting change. Now, there are times I think that a betrayed partner might have to serve as some extrinsic motivation, but I'm talking about a general overall attitude regarding their healing and their recovery. The second thing I'm looking at is capacity. So, capacity is the skill set or the abilities that we've got to learn how to do in order to do it in a healthier way. So, we've got to look at your situation and kind of analyze it maybe through those lenses. You said you're both are kind of early on, maybe not early on, but you've got had disclosure, you both need better recovery. That would be the first step. Because what's going to happen with your betraying partner in early recovery is he's going to learn about emotions. He's going to learn about the skills and tools, the recovery tools that he needs to start engaging in and using that will help him handle the irritability and the anger. And he's going to learn as he's working with these therapists about emotions and how to feel it in your body and how to identify it and how to then put into place healthy tools to use to help process and manage emotions in a healthier way rather than turning to whatever the out of control, compulsive sexual behavior was. So that is one part of it. You talk about he's got some root issues or wounds. So that is something that also is a part of recovery, not early recovery, but as we're getting established in recovery, we're doing formal therapeutic disclosure, right? We're working on repairing the relationship. We're also working then on getting to the root of what is kind of the root of the addiction. And we look at it, or I look at it through a trauma lens. There's going to be something, some type of an experience that contributed to it, whether it is abandonment wounding, rejection wounding, it could be even sexual abuse. It could be, there's something there that we want to address. So again, that's down the road. So when we talk about timeline for recovery, right? I'm looking at when I have a betrayed partner, I'm looking at the first, 6 months, 9 months might be stabilization because they're in crisis. And then we start working on the deeper healing. So a little bit, it's kind of true for even a betraying partner. We spend the first few months really getting strong in recovery. And then as time goes on, once they're in good recovery, right, we've got formal therapeutic disclosure behind us, they're already practicing empathy, then we can move into some more of the trauma work. So at this point, I would encourage both of you to get really good therapists. Those, make sure you've got a therapist that really understands betrayal trauma, and you want him to get a therapist that is partner sensitive. They understand how betrayal affects, the partner, and start doing that and then move towards disclosure and see if things start to shift or change. But 12-step, definitely get in and start doing that.
Agree. Again, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com if you want options and resources. We have lots. Okay. How do you navigate feelings of entitlement in this process? My husband has recently decided, he has decided that he is entitled to privacy and to take location tracking off his phone, open a separate account, etc. We've been reconciled for 3 years, but it feels like we're regressing recently.
Okay, so I think this would be a really great reason to go in and start working on doing couples work because I'm not sure it's not just entitlement. There might be other dynamics going on as well. So somebody who's in recovery, right, and really wants to repair a relationship is willing to be completely open, honest, transparent, no matter where you're at in the recovery process or the reconciliation process. So we want to get the betraying partner to take on an attitude of, I am going to do whatever will create safety for my betrayed partner. It might be inconvenient for me. It might be something I really don't want to do, but I'm willing to do it because I know when I create that safety, then we're more connected. And when we have that healthy connection, then the addict partner is far more regulated too, emotionally regulated. So is the betrayed partner. So again, when you look at, safety, I would imagine for you that him deciding that he's going to take the tracking off his phone and he's going to have a separate account on things is not creating safety for you. So maybe you could go to him and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. And you could use the 4-part talking boundary. I'll tell you what it is. First step is share the data. So when I saw that you took your location tracking off your phone and then you opened a separate account, that's step one. Step two is you're going to share your perception. So what I tell myself about that, or my thinking on that, is that you are doing things and sneaking around, and that you might end up slipping and betray me again. The third step is sharing the emotion, and that makes me very fearful. The fourth step of the 4-part talking boundary is sharing the boundary or making a request. And the request is, I need us to go to couples counseling and find a good therapist where we can work on this and work through this together. And if you choose not to do that with me, then it's going to create more disconnection with us. And I'm not sure where you're at in all this, but you may have to say, and it's going to have me seriously considering whether or not I can stay in the relationship. So that would be a way to set a boundary. So hope that's
Thank you for
helpful.
sharing that. Yeah, uh, I don't know either of you. When I read this, my gut is going like, this is not a good choice. When they're starting to go right back to the secrecy and if could we have a conversation? I'm wondering if we could talk about taking the location off my, and here's why I'm considering it. That's a conversation. I'm considering opening up a separate account because whatever, that's a separate conversation. But anybody who's doing all of this stuff without having a discussion with you, and you're finding that out, uh, take care of you, healthy boundaries for you. Okay, so I did not wait for a formal therapeutic disclosure before having my cheater write everything down the very next day. It worked well for us. We did have a formal therapeutic disclosure and a polygraph a few months later. The formal therapeutic disclosure revealed nothing new. I feel like the CSAT was just sucking more money from us. I feel like so many CSATs claim addiction, but do not recognize some people just choose bad behaviors. What do you suggest for betrayers that have zero issue stopping, just choose to cheat and deceive until caught?
Well, they obviously have some work to do, right? I think a 12 step would be a great thing to do so they can get radically honest and work through all the repair steps. I also think that they need to find a really good therapist that's going to work with them on values and focusing on what their values are, because you're right, it's about choice. I mean, everybody has choice. And so what is the plan now? What are the new rules or the new values, and how are you going to hold to those? So I know that what you're sharing is that it is a little bit different than addiction. I do some education with my betrayed partners when they come in, and so we talk about addiction, we talk about sexual compulsivity, and we talk about moral incongruency. And people can fall in each of those circles, and some people they overlap and they're in every circle. So in your case, it sounds like it's moral incongruency. So that needs to be the focus of their recovery. But regardless, for you as a betrayed partner, betrayal is betrayal, regardless of what caused them to do the betrayal. And so I would recommend in a situation like this too, that you work in couples, find a good couples therapist so that you can also work in couples therapy on something called consent. Consent is kind of the rules that we have in our relationship regarding fidelity, regarding that sexual aspect of our relationship. Because my guess is you didn't give him consent to go and act out. And even though it was because he made that choice, and every addict makes a choice, and whatever caused him to do that, was the driving factor. He needs to figure that out with the help of his own therapist. But for you, it's still hard. You've experienced betrayal. And I bet there's a part of you that wants him to really figure this out so he doesn't repeat it again. And so it can create a lot of fear in the betrayed partner.
Yeah, and I know thousands, I'm not exaggerating, of CSATs. And I hear your lens of, they're just sucking money. And I know that there's a few bad apples out there. There's people I don't recommend. That's it's just the reality. It's, if they're humans and do some things too. But that is not the overwhelming case. They are people who are do amazing work and help people, be on a different path. So I'm sorry that you had that experience. Dr. Rob talks about it. There are people that are just emotionally immature and don't really care, and I'm glad that as soon as he got caught, he stopped. That's fantastic. And that would not, lend towards addiction. And if he's able to grow up emotionally and show up, fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm with Debbie. You're so betrayed, and that's painful. And so, and if he's emotionally immature, how did he manage to grow up quickly so that he doesn't, do it again? Or as soon as something's tempting or he gets whatever, feels entitled, that he's going to go back and do it. So I agree to the 12 steps, like regardless of whether you're an addict. But there's a book Kristen Snowden and Scott Brassett wrote, Life Anonymous. Doing that, both of you together, each of you, it's just good living, and that would help with that moral incongruity. He may not be, feeling incongruent. He may go, I don't care, like that's the challenge of like your values are different. If you are perceiving that he's going to be monogamous and he's choosing not to be, that, that's incongruence. But if he doesn't care, and there are people like that, they don't care, and that's a whole nother thing. But I would invite you to not pathologize all, put all CSATs in a category of they're just, sucking money. They are. I know this woman is not just sucking money. She shows up, and I know so many of them that are dedicated, to doing things, above and beyond the call of duty to help people heal. So, but and yes, the other challenge is not everybody fits into this, into sex addiction, porn addiction, et cetera. And we do, we identify cheaters, and there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. But again, if it's, I don't understand, what made me choose to go do that, then guess what? I'm going to probably repeat the pattern. So making sure it doesn't happen again, and one more thing, because you said I made him do this and it worked good for us. Great that it worked well for you. We know too many partners who are absolutely traumatized, and Debbie started out with that, with the months of having to come out of the well of, that they are shoved into because of the trauma from that. So again, great that it worked for you and that was your experience. And the majority of the people I hear from, that is the absolute opposite of the case. So with all of this, it's take what is useful for you. We want people to heal and have the best chance at not adding to the trauma. Debbie talked about that. Formal therapeutic disclosure to not add to the trauma. That's what we're looking to do. And again, most people, there's usually something that comes out in formal therapeutic disclosure, even though, oh, she knows everything, so a unicorn, fantastic. We've like we found somebody who's in that category, the fringe of stuff. I'm glad you're here, and I hope that the resources that we have, can provide some useful information for you on rebuilding the relationship, after the pain of betrayal and cheating. So okay, so thank you all for the great questions. Thank you, Debbie, as always. We'll look forward to part two, and stay tuned. This video will be posted probably Monday, and then we'll look for the next piece. So for those of you in the U.S., enjoy the Thanksgiving, and there is a Betrayed Partner group on Thursday. Rose is doing that one, so check out the schedule, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.